Good day. My name is Siegfried Vermaak. I'm the CEO of Simulation Architects, SimArch for short, based here in Belgium since 1999. One of our core competencies is the design and development of online banking simulation programs. These banking simulation programs are used by commercial banks in the training and development of their personnel across several functions and departments within a bank. Some of our online banking simulation programs are also used by universities and business schools that teach programs with a concentration in banking. And today we will hear from two faculty members from two universities in the United States that have been using our online banking simulation programs now for a few years. It is my pleasure to firstly introduce Dr. Kent Belasco from Marquette University in Wisconsin. Since 2018, Marquette University has been using two of our simulation programs as part of the curriculum under the guidance of Dr. Kent Belasco. Dr. Belasco has 37 years of experience in banking and consulting with companies such as Citicorp, Exchange National Bank, Deloitte & Touche, and First Midwest Bank, where he was formerly the Executive Vice President for Chief Information and Operations Officer. He is currently at Marquette the Director of the Commercial Banking Program and Assistant Professor of Finance. Dr. Belasco has taught both undergraduate and graduate level finance courses over the past 19 years. He's the author of numerous publications in banking, management, and project management, and is currently completing a textbook on commercial banking. Kent is also a member of the Economics Wisconsin University Faculty Council. So Kent, my pleasure to hand over to you so that you can explain to us how you have been using the simulation programs as part of your curriculum at Marquette.
Thank you very much, Siegfried, and I appreciate that introduction. And this actually is one of my favorite topics to talk about because I've enjoyed working with Siegfried and with SimArch and the simulation for some time now. Let me tell you a little bit about my program, first of all, and I think that'll give you a little bit more context. I started my program back in 2017, and once I was developing my curriculum and my courses, I look to make this more of an applied approach. So that's where the simulations make a lot of sense. But a little bit of background, I do have 5 courses that were developed in my program. I do have an introduction and a fundamentals course, a loan underwriting, a loan portfolio management, a risk management, and we do a financial modeling class utilizing Excel, all geared towards commercial bankers. My program is designed for students who desire to have a career in commercial banking. So they actually apply to my program. We interview them. I bring in professionals to interview them. And once they're selected, those courses that I indicated are the ones that they take. And the goal is to have them be knowledgeable and hit the ground running when they enter their careers. I'm happy to say that all of my graduating classes thus far, I've had 3 of them are 100% placed, and we're on path right now for the 2021 graduates. I lecture in all of those courses, but let me tell you a little bit more about the reasons that I focus on a simulation. And one of the things that I've learned as I teach commercial banking is there are lots and lots of concepts, terminology, and many of those things for young students are very abstract. So what I try to do with the simulation is to take abstract concepts and make them much more concrete. And it fits with Marquette University's applied experiential approach to education. And that's exactly how I use the simulation. So I think it's very important for students to learn by doing. And by using the simulation, I use First Bank and I use both simulations actually, but as I use these, students get an opportunity to really understand the concepts that I'm talking about in class, and they can see how it actually works within a bank. And that's really the benefit. They do learn by doing for sure. And the other thing that I like about it too is it fits very well with the sequence of topics I teach in class. So what I try to do is educate them on a number of the concepts first, and then give them an opportunity to apply it by taking the next steps with the simulation. I've been using the simulation probably for over 3 years now, and I use it literally all year long because I teach obviously in the fall and the spring semesters. I have some different courses there, but in my intro course or my fundamentals course, I use First Bank, and that's both in the fall and the spring. And I teach a bank risk management course in the spring, and I used Interbank for that. And Interbank lends itself well towards a focus on risk management. So this is kind of a, I don't want to say it's a capstone course, but it's very important for young bankers to learn about the banks, the risks that banks face, especially the ones that I would consider existential risks, and some of them are. And that's how we use the simulation. What I typically do when I'm using the simulation is I use most parts of it, and in some cases I break it up a little bit to emphasize certain topics. So for instance, in my fundamentals course, I'm teaching them the basics of managing a bank. So we usually start with the mission statement and defining the importance of financial objectives. It's good to know what you're going to accomplish, and that's what we focus on. I find the economic indicator section of the simulation outstanding because it brings in one of the core competencies I believe any banker should know, and that's a good understanding of the economy, how the economic indicators can guide them, tell them what direction interest rates are going by way of Fed funds rates, what are treasury yields doing, what's GDP, unemployment, inflation. All of those play a huge role, and how they relate to the bank. That's important. And I think that's the one thing that I try to emphasize. You develop a budget using the balance sheet. We make pricing decisions. And then where the real lights go on is when they make their decisions and they see their results. They can run multiple simulation forecasts. I call these what ifs, and they can see exactly the results of their decisions. If they don't like it, they can change it, run it again. And that's all done before we actually complete the quarter. And when the quarter runs, then it's pretty much a real world situation. They're running against the competition. So that's valuable to them. I typically use anywhere from 2 to 4 quarters during a 16-week semester. Sometimes I break it up, and certainly during the pandemic, we've had to do some different things because of our distancing in class and time that I have to get in front of the students and talk about some of these concepts. But usually it's in that range. The way I use it in class is what I've historically done is I've broken them out into teams. So teams of 3 or 4 students would constitute a single bank. And all of the banks, once I develop as many, whether it's 15, 16 banks, that becomes the market. That's the marketplace. And they work together as team members to make decisions and to analyze the results from the simulation forecast. Um, what I also do is I do what's called a peer assessment. I do that mainly because um, everybody who goes into business, especially banking, has to work in teams. You may not like everybody in the team, but you have to work together as a team. So we use that as part of the learning process and part of the evaluation, and it works pretty well. But I do have them focus on the topics that I've been talking about in class, and we use those as examples. I'll switch to a little bit to assessment. The way I use the simulation is I typically don't have a high percentage of the total grade based upon the simulation. It will range anywhere from 10% of the grade to 20%. And the reason I do that is because, first of all, they're in a team. So the team will get a grade. And my goal is not so much for students in an intro class to say how well they're doing against their peers. For me, it's more important to understand how they improve as the quarters progress. And that's the way I evaluate them. So the first thing I look at is whether or not the goals that they established, did they attain them at the end of 4 quarters? The other thing that I look at then is I look at how well they do quarter to quarter, and I look at how well they progress from the very initial starting point at quarter 0 to where they are now. So I have an algorithm that I put together that I award points based upon those percentages. So it's not punitive, but it tells how well they're paying attention to the simulation forecast and how successful they are in improving themselves over time. To me, that tells it all. That tells me whether they're learning and certainly at what level. I want to talk just kind of wrapping up here a little bit about students' reaction to this. And I get a lot of comments from the evaluation. Some students will say, "Wow, that's very challenging," or "I had no idea that it is that um, uh, complex working with the bank and how much the economy plays a role in this." And so a lot of the students do comment on that. But one of the things that I think they like the most is that it's very real world. It is about as close as I can get, and there's so much flexibility in the simulation that I can tweak the economic environment whichever way I want it to be. I can have it mirror exactly what's going on. And in some cases, the way I've used this in my risk management class is I use the economic indicators and create a stress test. So what a lot of the bigger banks are going through right now, I set up an adverse situation economically and an extremely adverse situation and see how they respond to that. So that is challenging to them, but now they understand what banks go through, and it helps them to get a deeper level of understanding um, about this. Now, the one thing I do periodically as well, at the end of the simulation, at the end of 4 quarters, I would ask the teams to prepare an earnings release, which is typically what a bank would do at the end of a quarter. And they write a press release. Um, and what they do is they present this. And what I've done in the past is I will bring in actual bank CEOs that are partners of mine in conjunction with our program, and they will critique what the students are doing. And it's a great way for them to network. It's a great way for them to um, prepare themselves and to really talk about the results in the simulation, which is something they really enjoy. I usually have them take a role as CEO, CFO, Chief Lending Officer, Chief Risk Officer when they present. So it encompasses all aspects of commercial banking, and it addresses the accounting, the economic, the financial aspects of what a banker has to do. So overall, for me, this is an integral part of my curriculum and will always be that. I like the model because I can get creative with it. I can use it in many different ways to challenge my students, and that's the way I continue to do it. So hopefully I've given you a pretty good picture of how I use both SimArch and Interbank. And I thank you for the time, Siegfried, and I'll turn this back to you.
Thank you very much, Kent, for that outline and description and explanation of how you use the simulations as part of the curriculum at the university. I must say what struck me is, and also in our discussions, is how you use the macroeconomic indicators. Obviously, coming from Europe, we, right from the day that we designed the simulation, had the clear understanding that it makes, let's say, little sense to bring a European model to the United States. The United States is not Europe, and otherwise to take that to Africa or Asia. And that's why we built in the level of flexibility that we currently have, so that we can tailor or customize the macroeconomic indicators to suit the United States in your case and in the case of Fort Hayes. What I like so much about the way that you use also the simulation is the cases, or let's say the crisis scenarios. So where you take parts of the simulation program and utilize it to further highlight to students how banks in real life go about the mitigation of risk and dealing with the macroeconomic indicators and conditions that they face from quarter to quarter, from month to month. The other point that struck me during, and I know that how important that for you is the fact that directly after a quarter, participants see the impact of their decisions on the results of their bank, their virtual bank, and that's a powerful learning curve. It struck them, standing face, it's right in their face, and they immediately realize, well, we can only blame ourselves because we took those decisions,
Yes.
And that's what makes the simulation so much fun and learning. And the other impact is that you also mentioned is the fact that we built into the program a number of years ago this what we call a forecast simulation before the real economy happens. And that's a powerful part of the learning, what I call cause and effect, so that they can see, what is a cause and effect? And they can try and improve their situation like banks do in real life. They have very sophisticated balance sheet management or asset liability management software tools that they use to try and get a solid handle on what is our interest rate sensitivity, how sensitive is our net interest income to potential moves in the macroeconomic environment when rates go up or down. And also the policy of the Federal Reserve plays a huge part in that. So thank you very much. That was really a very detailed overview.
Thank you for the opportunity.
That's absolutely welcome. Thank you for your time. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you the second university, which is Fort Hayes State University in Kansas, that has been using the First Bank 3 banking simulation program since 2017. Under the guidance of Dr. Alan Deines. I must say, together with the Kansas, Alan is extremely proactive, and together with the Kansas Bankers Association, SimArch, and the Fort Hayes State University conducted an online banking competition during 2019, fortunately before COVID, for banks in the state of Kansas. And by the way, we're planning one for 2021 also. Dr. Alan Deines is the inaugural director of the Robbins Banking Institute at Fort Hayes State University. In this role, he leads a unique initiative to prepare both traditional on-campus students and place-bound distance learning students for crucial roles in the banking industry. In this, I've been party to, personally been witness and party to seeing how the university drive absolutely has an ambition and drive to place students in different roles in the state of Kansas and beyond, neighboring states of Kansas itself. Alan has over 37 years experience in the banking industry, including 20 years of consulting, working with hundreds of banks, both domestic as well as internationally. Alan has served as a member of the board of directors for the Kansas Bankers Association, as well as the Iowa Bankers Association. Alan, my pleasure to introduce you and hand over to you to explain to us how you are using First Bank at Fort Hayes. Thank you very much.
Well, Thank you, Siegfried. I truly appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we do at Fort Hays, and very interested to see what Kent is doing at Marquette. I always learn something from him when I get a chance to hear him talk. Let's see, I need to get a PowerPoint up here. And what I want to talk about is a little bit about Fort Hays and our mission, and what we've been doing with the Robbins Banking Institute. We started our program in the fall of 2017 as well, and saw a really nice growth curve as we got going with this. Fort Hays is unique in the fact that really over half of our students are virtual students. And what that means is that we get a different dynamic in terms of the student body. And it also means that we really have a worldwide presence. And within the Banking Institute, more than half of our students are virtual, and a number of them are international as well. So it's interesting. I think it's good for the students to deal with each other and deal with the diversity that happens as a result. The way we've got our institute organized is we offer 3 different levels of credentials. The first one's a banking certificate, which is about 12 hours, and it's really designed for non-degree seeking individuals. And we have a lot of people outside the university take these classes, and they're working for that certificate, and many of them already work in a bank. So it's an opportunity for them to build their portfolio, so to speak, and move up within the organization. The second level is a banking minor. It's 21 hours, and it is designed for people who aren't necessarily seeking a finance degree, but they want the credentials of understanding how a bank works. The most common demographic for this, we get a lot of people out of our agricultural business department who are working towards a ag lending degree or opportunity. And then finally, the finance degree, it's a Bachelor of Arts. With a concentration in banking, it's 29 hours. And of course, that has a healthy dose of finance theory and how that works, economics, very important, and some of the accounting that goes with it as well. The bank-specific courses right now are principles of banking. There's the bank management class and then the bank strategies. We have some other classes as well. We have a fundamentals of lending, which many of our students take. In the finance, we typical investment classes, and we hope to come online with a fixed income course as well, which would play very well in terms of the banking. Then we have, of course, accounting and economics. The classes I teach, I do 3 different classes. One is fundamentals of lending. This is essentially a preparation for credit analysts to get them started. The bank management class we'll talk about in just a minute, and then banking strategies. So these are where I spend most of my time teaching. The lending class is, like I said, it's to get students ready for credit analysis. A lot of the curriculum comes from the RMA Credit Essentials course, and it focuses on cash flow. We hear it from the regulators, we hear it from the banks, as well as the students need to understand cash flow to understand commercial and agricultural lending. The bank management class is essentially a risk management class in a lot of ways. And what we do in this class is it's organized around the camels that the regulators use. So we're teaching the students what these different acronyms are. It's capital, asset, management, earnings, liquidity, and sensitivity to market risk. We teach them how to measure those things, what they are, how the regulators view them, and we make considerable use of Uniform Bank Performance Report and show the students how to use those things to develop key ratios and a calculation methodology for operating their bank. The students usually in the fall when we take this class, they select their bank that they're going to work with, and they live with that bank for the entire semester as we take the financials apart and understand what's going on. And of course, they've got analysis that they supply as we work through the different topics. The banking strategies class is where we make use of the simulation from SimArch. And we started using that in the spring of 2018, and we've had great success with it. We work principally with First Bank. Like Kent does, it's a learn by doing. It's what I explain to people is you can talk all day long about how to ride a bicycle, but until you sit on the seat and start going, you're not going to learn. And so that's the idea behind it. It's very hands-on, and the students spend quite a lot of time with it through the semester. We use the program to really build on the concepts we taught in the prior course on the camels. And we like to use it because it demonstrates how dynamic a bank's balance sheet and income statement really is in terms of money moving in and out of the bank. And then finally, we stress the importance of working in groups. Now, a little bit unique here in that we have two sections of this class as we do the others. One is on campus and one is virtual, and it's asynchronous. But we put these people into groups where there are campus students and off-campus students working together. And the idea is that the students learn the dynamics and the methods for working in teams, and they're distributed. So it's very likely that a team may have somebody from Kansas, somebody from Iowa, perhaps Africa somewhere, and maybe even in South America, all on the same team. And they have to learn how to work together. They don't always like it, but it's a skill set that banks ask for when they're talking about hiring people, and we think it's valuable. The setup, the way we use the program is a little different than what Kent does. It's the economic environment so far as we've used, we try to take a current environment and project it forward. And we'll do our own internal forecast for the year. And then the students have to work through that. They don't know from quarter to quarter what it's going to be. But the whole idea is to get them to think about different indices and how they impact the bank, and to form some judgment about what they're going to be. As far as banking activities, we try to mimic a typical community bank, and we try to strip out some of the things that would be confusing or really take away from some of the fundamentals that we want the students to have. We do have repurchase agreements enabled so banks can borrow. What we have disabled, though, are options trading, bond trading, and investment banking. We really think that's probably a topic for another class. And then we run 4 quarters. They usually about every 2 to 3 weeks, the students have a quarter. They have to prepare a analysis and the income statement and explain it to a board of directors. And the board, in our instance, consists of CEOs from some of our partner banks as well. And a couple of things happen as a result of this is, one, the students find out that the CEOs have the same problems they do. Two is that they get to interact, and as an opportunity for them to start to network with the industry as a whole. So we use this, in fact, we just finished one, and it was pretty successful. It was the first one, and I think the students did pretty well with it. So that's how we try to use it. And then, of course, how they react and what happens certainly provides some things to talk about at the next class. The use of it is we like the teams. They make the decisions, the pricing, volume, terms. The students learn the impact of their decisions on the bank's camels. They get to see a real-time impact with each quarter. And of course, the forecast or the what ifs also provides a learning opportunity for them as they talk through this in the teams. And then finally, the results also lets us talk about really specific kinds of issues that they would be likely to encounter in the banking world. Our assessment is similar to Marquette's. I'm not interested in actual performance here. What I am interested in is what they got right, if they did things wrong, and what they plan to do for it. And I'm looking for them to demonstrate that they understand the concepts and what's going on. We do a peer assessment as well. Our algorithm is based on the peer assessment and how we judge the report. So very similar. It's to try to build in some value for working together and also some value for understanding what's going on. Grade weight, about 50% of the grade in our class is based on the simulation. Now, that also includes the peer assessment as well. We also have the students prepare a credit memo. It's based on a case study. It accounts for about 25%, and then a research paper that accounts for about 25%. So the simulation is very important in this class. And really, this is where the students really get to put the pieces together and understand how their bank works. So feedback, and whether this has been successful, is that we typically get very high marks from the students when we look at our evaluations. We see measurable improvement from the beginning of to the end of the semester. So the quality of the quarterly reports gets better almost incrementally as you watch it happen. And then finally, the potential employers are impressed as well. And we have 100% placement rate so far into the banking industry as well. In fact, we could use more students. We're not meeting the demand at this point. So we're continuing to work on that. Experience with SimArch, the support's always been excellent and timely. The learning curve is fairly short. So my big concern when we started in 2018 is how much I personally was going to struggle with this. And after about the first quarter, lights came on, and it wasn't that hard to keep pushing it forward. A couple of other things that I like is the technology doesn't get in the way of the instruction. It's unobtrusive. We're really focused on what happened to the bank that the students are running and understanding the results and what happened. I would say it provides a very good student experience. Frustration level is kind of high at start, first quarter, but after that, the students settle into a routine, and they seem to have a pretty good experience from it. So, Siegfried, that's my sense on using the simulation. I'm looking to expand what we do and how we do it. University here, we have what we call continuous improvement. So you're always taking steps to make things better. And this has been a very good experience for us. I think we have good students. The employers that hire these students are impressed with them. And I'm getting about a 3-year grade card now to see how some of these kids have done. And they're moving up in their organizations. So I'd say we're on the right track.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that outline, Alan, and how you use simulations at Fort Hayes. I must say, looking at the students at Fort Hayes as the on-campus and then the virtual students, I think this is where the simulation lends itself very well from a flexibility point of view. There's no software to be installed, as you mentioned. The technology is not in the way. I like the way you put it, because that's exactly what we've striven for. No software to install. It's all in the cloud. It's available 24/7, because, as you mentioned, students have come from different time zones, and even us interacting with you, Europe and the United States, doesn't stand in our way. You know, we like now we have different time zones, and it all works well. And this is one of the strengths of the simulation. And the teams can work nicely together. We've done that over the number of years with international competitions that we had from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the United States and Europe, obviously, all in teams and working seamlessly together. The other important part that I think come out from your explanation is the enabling or disabling of activities. I know from the outset you weren't interested in the most complex of the instruments and so on, and we have the ability to switch those off, or let's say disable them, and they fit your class perfectly. You know, there's enough already for students to get their hands or arms around, to stretch them on things that doesn't really fit with even the theory that you try and teach them. So that's I know I've seen how effectively you use the simulation as far as that is concerned. And finally, from your presentation, the stress on camels. I'm so glad to hear that, because from day one, that is how we built the simulation. You know, those core components: liquidity, capital, market risk, credit risk, productivity, cost control, and obviously management, all part of the camels, which is international methodology used by central banks to inspect, or let's say supervise, banks effectively. That's what we built into the simulation, and that forms the core component parts of the model, which one can put emphasis on some parts as you go along, you know, and also lends itself to provide using a theme per quarter if you want. Capital 1 quarter, liquidity 1 quarter, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much again to both of you. Ken, thank you also for your contribution. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for the time that you made available and sharing this with us. You know, our intent is to just provide other potential universities and business schools that have the same interest in online learning tools to hear from practitioners like yourself, very active, proactive faculty at these two universities. And I really value the contribution that you made to this recording, the time that you made available, and most importantly, value our relationship with you, which, as we know now, has been going for a couple of years. And we look forward to build on that as time moves on. Thank you once again. And with that, I conclude then this recording. Our staff that's in control can then discontinue. Thank you very much for.
Thank you, Siegfried.
Thank you.